Hello,
I am Khyati,
and I am Kshitish.
and this is the Heythereabaadi Rockstars podcast.
We are honored to have Miss Uma Magal and Miss Mahnoor Yar Khan here with us today.
Miss Uma and Ms. Mahnoor are the creators of the film Other Kohinoors, The Rocks of Hyderabad.
Other Kohinoors, the Rocks of Hyderabad, as the makers like to put it, is a love letter to the rocks of Hyderabad.
We warmly welcome you to the show. Thank you for having us. Please tell us a little bit about yourselves.
I'm a drama therapist and I work mainly in conflict areas. And Uma and I met 10 years ago, and that's when we started the film. I mean, we knew each other before, but we started the film 10 years ago, and you've seen the end result of it now.
Wow.
Yes, so we're old friends from Hyderabad, theatre days in Hyderabad, and so when we actually 10 years ago started the research and everything for this film, and here we are, as she says. I work in film for now the past 35 years, and I teach film, and I'm a mom. I have 2 kids, and I'm a Hyderabadi.
Oh yes, we all are. We all are.
We all are.
Yeah.
Yes.
Other Kohinoors, the Rocks of Hyderabad, is an ode to the rocks of Hyderabad that are as precious as the Kohinoor. So, what inspired you to make this film in the first place?
No, so when I came back from a long stint abroad to Hyderabad with my children, we did a lot of going on the rocks, spending the day on the rocks, bouldering with the Greater Hyderabad Adventure Club. Then Society to Save Rocks has rock walks. So we'd go on that. My goal was to keep them away from the gadgets, So, it worked out very well, and we loved it. And then we were staying in the Gachibowli area because that was convenient for school and every work and everything. And in front of our eyes, we saw those rocks go. And that was quite devastating. It was really a shock to see how quickly they went, And so I would say that the inspiration or whatever, the reason to make this film is really rooted in grief. At the loss of those rocks, at the loss of childhood memories of the rocks. Both Mahnoor and I can tell you so many stories. And in fact, every Hyderabadi can tell you so many stories about how they used to, what they did on the rocks, this, that. And everyone we spoke to, in the long research that we did for the film, 2.5 years of research, everyone said, coming back to Hyderabad, from wherever you are, the rocks are a signal of homecoming. Now I'm home. Like when I went to the hostel, I was studied in Delhi, both during my BA as well as my MA. And coming home on the train, we'd be...
you see the rocks and then you feel, it's Hyderabad now.
Exactly. Hyderabad, not just Hyderabad, it's home now.
Oh yes.
We're home.
Definitely.
So that was the reason I think that we started. Then as we went along, we found so much more to enjoy, and it started in grief, but as we progressed, it became like understanding how our sensibility, our culture, our cultural imagination in the city just celebrates the rocks and treats the rocks with so much affection, so much respect, and so that became a joy also. So it's a mixed bag,
And Mahnoor ma'am, what about you?
We, having been brought up in Hyderabad mainly, we spent a lot of time on the rocks.
Wow.
Banjara Hills had no houses, Jubilee Hills was...
A hillock.
It was at the back of beyond. My parents got a plot there when the society was being developed, and they said, "Utti dur kan jayenge," sort of thing. So they returned the plot.
Oh my God.
And it was all these rocks, so which we enjoyed thoroughly. Durgam Cheravu was Secret Lake, and we all used to cycle up there and swim in the lake actually.
Wow. Oh.
So suddenly to find the city had taken over.
Humans
The
have taken over.
rocks. Humans had taken
Humans.
over the rocks. And the joy that we experienced was no longer there for a lot of young people.
Hmm.
I think when Uma approached me and said, "Do you want to work on this film?" I said, "Yes. The time is now. It's taken us a long time to complete it. But 10 years ago, at least, there were some rocks close by. And over the years, they've been disappearing slowly. And that is very difficult to accept.
True.
And so now that the film is ready, we need to take it around and try and get people a little more sensitive to what is and see what they can do. So yeah.
The film consists of many elements, from stories and folklore, with rocks as their central themes, to poetry and visual arts. And the narrative also comprises of the different languages spoken in Hyderabad, like Telugu, Urdu, Dakhani, and also English. So, how did you treat this diversity in your film?
So, it was a very organic thing to do that. It came most naturally because that is how we are in this city. We talk all these languages, we hear all these languages all the time. Our arts, our stories are all told in all these languages. Yes. So it came very naturally. We didn't even hesitate, to do it. I know it's an unusual choice because usually you have a film in one language only, but there was no question that we must have it all because that's how the city is, that's how the culture is.
And we move from one language to the other.
Oh,
You
so
do it yourselves.
Yeah, of course.
And that's extremely natural here too. So it was quite natural to make a film.
And it was
where you
quite
move
fun too,
from one language to the other very naturally.
And it was quite fun too, right? For you as filmmakers, maybe.
It made it very interesting, and I know it's not a usual choice, but for me it was very clear. I didn't doubt it at all because I knew that's how the reality is, and that's how people will relate to it. I was quite confident of that. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
we do need to subtitle, so that's the downside of it. So, but that's okay. Yeah.
And what about integrating all the different arts and stories and everything, putting everything together?
Well, 2.5 years of research showed us there was so much more to the rocks and what they had given Hyderabadis.
Oh, yes.
And so it was important to put that in the film, and we did it through all that we had heard from ecologists, geologists, to artists, to historians, to poets. So it was quite natural in those terms to make it a richer film.
Yeah, absolutely. And we had great mentors in this, I must point this out. So there was Ziauddin Shakib Saab, there was Narendra Luthar, there was Jagdish Mittal, there was Shankar Milkote, there was Suraya Appa. All these people had such... Narsingrao Burgula, how can I forget him? So these people were willing to share all their knowledge of Hyderabadi history, Hyderabadi art, culture, the regional, richness. And that was so inspiring in itself. Just hearing them talk about all these things. Jagdish Mittal sir was amazing. Burgula Narsingra was amazing. So all these things just sort of filled us with, all these different aspects, the different dimensions of the arts and how the rocks are treated in these arts.
And we did feel, I think, that that's what the audience needed to relate to. Not everybody relates to the rocks for what they are, but there's all this cultural aspect, language, music that is so close to people.
And then there are your own memories.
And our memories.
Yeah.
Yes.
At the heart of the film is the Song of the Kohinoors. And like you once had mentioned, you had also made the film according to the song, right? So this song has many genres in it, Indian classical, hip hop, but it essentially is a rap song. And that makes it so unique. So please tell us the story behind this song and how it came to be.
So yes, I had put a rough cut together and brought it to Hyderabad. And we, in this very room, we saw it, and then we were trying to think how to make the whole come together. And art, Dakhani miniature, poetry, Makdoom, the Telugu film songs, all had come into place by then. But what we were very concerned about is that we shouldn't be talking only to people who already know about rocks. We have to reach new people and younger people. And that became a very important aspect of how should the film be structured, how should the film be narrated. And I'm very against this voice of God narration saying, now look, and I can't, really don't. It's become very old style and people just switch off immediately. Okay, now let's just see the visuals and put it off.
God.
So that's why I was very clear about that. And when this aspect also came, that let's appeal to the youngsters and let's do a rap.
Oh, okay.
Let's do it in the rap. And that's when it became very clear that we could write this song, including all that we wanted to say. Like the folklore, how do you include everything? Like there's so much information. The research that we did had gathered so much information. Then how do you put it in? Vattepalli story, Donga Mallana story.
Yeah.
How do you put it in? You can't make different animations. How many animations? And we don't have a budget to start with. So that was also a very important reason to write the rap, to write the song, that we could include all this information. And Usha Raman, who's a very well-known person in the city, she's a poet and educationist.
Yeah, there's a column in the Hindu also, right?
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. So she is a dear friend. So I asked her, Usha, will you write a rap? And she said, okay.
Wow.
Just like Mahnoor, when I said, Mahnoor, will you join me in this film? Okay.
Wow.
So this is the kind of enthusiasm that propelled this film really. That it seems like a good idea. Let's do it. And so then we got together and we wrote it. And initially it was a lot in English. And so that became, like we talked about the mixture, the hybrid languages in this trilingual film sort of. So then I wanted to bring in the Dakhani and the Telugu. And so I wrote the Dakhani, and then there were these wonderful people, Satya Prakash, Giridhar Rao, and B.B. Teja, who inputted Telugu. And Usha also wrote some Telugu. And that's how the song fleshed out. And then, of course, we had to find people like you. So you tell us now, you made such a great contribution to the song. We loved it. Remember that first meeting we had when you looked at the, that Excel sheet that Mahnoor had made of the lyrics. And then you also, every line you all gave input. That we can do this, we can do this.
Yes.
You came up with the soul cut too. I mean, that is for me one of the most beautiful contributions ever. The idea was yours, the execution was yours, and Murtho used it so beautifully. So, it's thanks to the whole group.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
And it's all thanks to the team that we could do a wonderful job on the song. There was Miss Mahnoor there at the studio with us, and you got connected. And
Yes.
it was very nice.
Yes, and Mahnoor was not only in the studio, she was running around like organizing transport, food, so much more than just, being in the studio.
And there was so much energy in the studio, like
Yes.
everyone wanted to do, like keep working and working. And we did not think about how many hours it has
Oh.
been. And
That was really such a boost for us. That whole studio, I think that's the best part of the film.
Oh.
I also feel, although I was piped in from Dublin, but the energy of all of you, George Hull, he played anything. Gopika and Murtho would say, can you do this? And yes, okay. You guys, okay, now can you do violin? Now piano? Now can you do
Okay.
drums? Now can you do flute? It was amazing, just
Thank you.
amazing. Yeah. So Man, you were
And getting into it, I think from the beginning we definitely didn't want a narration.
oh, okay.
Wow.
So that we were very, very clear about in the film. And then just getting singers and artists like you all just made it more exciting. It was though, I think for the lyrics to come through as they did, it was a lot of back and forth, which was quite interesting. I mean, I remember the first time I looked at them, it just seems so vague. What are we getting ourselves into?
But the
Because there
way
was so much information in
and
it.
the way it translated on screen was completely different. It was enthralling. Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, I think Murto had a major part to play in terms of, and Gopika, when she first sang it, because we had been struggling with various artists and never having done rap before.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, suddenly to find how do we get the artists enthused into something like this with these words into a rap song?
And even both of you had some parts in the song.
Yes, because those phrases are very nice and
Oh,
very
yes.
uniquely Hyderabadi. Like when Man says
Ujjaad
"Ujjaad
Surat."
Surat," I mean, I just love that
Yes,
phrase.
yes.
So I said we have to have this in there. So and it came at a nice point, and we could include it. And she was there in the studio, and she said it so well, so it all worked out. And of course, the Purana Pul Ashik.
Oh.
That was too funny.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was great fun. It was great fun.
Mhm.
Yeah. And thank you again to you two
Oh.
for your contribution. Yes.
So, what challenges did you face during the making of this film? And how have Hyderabadis reacted to it?
Challenges, many. One, we didn't have a budget. We had no money for this film. And Uma did her own personal contribution
Mm.
and went out because it was important to film what was remaining. And so, right through the film, as you have seen on the credits, we had a number of camera persons, and each one had their own camera. So, that was a challenge, has been a challenge in the editing stage. So that was one challenge, and working with different camera persons and explaining to them the idea of the film. So that was one major
Yeah.
challenge.
I think that really sums it up, the budget and the fact that, we had to just keep going, because the rocks were disappearing, we had to capture it. At the same time, we were doing the research and finding the good parts. So, it was really a balance in the whole process, that the grief at seeing this happening, the city in transition, it's really a city in transition.
Yes.
And this film, I think, is also very interesting because it documents a city in transition.
Wow.
So, that's a very, that I was very conscious of that while shooting also, and passing that on to the camera people to capture that. And the grief at seeing, the
Things
rocks go.
stops disappearing.
Yeah, but then it was balanced by the research we were doing, and we were finding all this wonderful information, the stories, the lore, the poetry. Yeah, so it was a mixed bag as we went along. It was a challenge, but it was also a joy, definitely.
I think the other big challenge was there were a lot of people, you all included, who volunteered on the films. Whether they were artists, graphic designers, animators, you name it, musicians, singers. And so having to then adjust to their timing.
Yes. Oh, yes.
It did delay the film to some extent.
For instance, the Bidri story, Biryani Shah, 1.5 years it took us to do.
My God.
Oh.
I mean, it was just amazing, It's such a short, it's barely 45 seconds.
Yes, it seems simple, but
It seems simple, but just the time people are busy, people are, the fastest was B.V. Suresh, the painter. He was amazing. He came up and offered himself very generously out of the kindness of his heart that I'll do it for you. And it was done. It was done. So that was the fastest. And we were like, oh my God. So as Mahan says, the fact that we had to adjust to so many schedules because everyone's volunteering either for an honorarium or completely free. So then you can't sort of say, do it now. You just have to keep at it and, send them something inspiring to make them do it. And, it was definitely one of the biggest challenges.
and then there was the pandemic, right?
The pandemic didn't affect us much.
Yeah. I think in fact we probably had people had more time because they were at home and working from home. So that to some extent helped, but it was just a question of balancing, between
Yes.
their work and what they could give us.
Hmm.
And so we had to be patient, which was difficult.
Patience was the biggest learning out of this film. Patience. And then, during the pandemic, of course, one thing that happened was, I think towards the end, that we had a lot of pickup shooting to do. So Mahnoor went out at that time and picked up all those shots, the Purana Pul shots, Pahadi Shri,
Wow.
lot of shots. So that was, I was always worried that, she's going out and
It's not safe.
yeah. So that, although they had closed the pandemic by then, right? It was sort of opening up.
It was opening up,
Yeah.
and it's not only me, but the crew agreed to come along.
Yeah, which
You
was
know.
worrisome, very worrisome. Yeah.
So people were concerned about the city and what was happening to it, and just came forth.
And how did they react to this? How has the response been
Now
so
you
far?
have to tell us. You were there at the premiere. This answer has to come from you.
It's so nice. So many people showing up for a documentary, and no one would have expected that really. As an audience member, I would say that the premiere was a hit, and it was quite outstanding as far as the response is concerned. And now that you are taking it to different places, schools, colleges, and how has the response been there?
I'd say it's a continuation of the premiere. It's
Oh,
really
okay.
amazing.
Okay.
We went to Chaitanya, we went to TIS, and then we're going to Vidyaranya, to University of Hyderabad, and we have a whole slew of screenings lined up. And in your college, we would like to go there to CBIT, so we'll be in touch with the gentleman you mentioned. So it's amazing. At Chaitanya, the children were like, right, man, you can continue. How amazing they
Well,
were.
the children were reacting to various aspects of the film. Yeah, and giving suggestions of how
Wow.
to say it.
And they
So
were
that was-
dancing to the rap.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
We were facing the screen, so we didn't realize. Later, the teachers told us.
Oh,
Wow.
my God.
Yeah. But so it's been, even at TIS, there was it was mainly with a group of students who are into policy making and
Governance and
city
public
governance.
policy.
Yeah. And so there were a number of questions
Oh, okay.
being asked, not so much on the film, but about the idea of saving the rocks. Yeah. So it's been an interesting reaction from them.
And you have made this film, you are showing it to people around Hyderabad, and personally, what do you think can be done to preserve the remaining rocks of Hyderabad, the rocks that remain, like you say, and what is your message to Hyderabadis about this?
So I think both of us have lots to say about this. But we don't want to make take up too much time. But the film says a lot of it in the end, in the wrap itself. To have neighborhood parks, to have city parks, to preserve the parks that we have and create public parks out of the rock spaces that are left, to have commercial spaces, keep the rocks, to have architects think about how to preserve the rocks. We have a lot of, I really want this, a Patthar Divas.
Wow.
A festival, a rock festival every year in the city. I think it's, in Telugu we call it Bandala Panduga. Why not? Why not? This is something we should celebrate.
Yes.
And to have things like this will make people reconnect to the rocks. And slowly we're hoping that will generate, a dialogue and an enthusiasm that will affect the government. And we have to find ways to affect the government, of course. Go to them with our message, with the fact that no other city in the world has this. Maybe not world, India certainly.
Yes.
No other city has this.
Yes.
And it's so tied up with the sensibility of the city. It's so clear that we can celebrate this. So all these ways I feel we can utilize to keep the rocks that remain.
And yes,
Well, I think with the film, I hope Hyderabadis wake up to the fact that there's something very beautiful in their midst, and it's time they did something about it. So I'm hoping the film will do just that.
Yeah. So that's why we're showing it every year, because it's reconnecting with the landscape and reconnecting with the culture. We're hoping will bring a fresh impetus among the citizens of Hyderabad. young to old, to sort of then start talking about it, letting other people know about it, and letting the government realize that the citizens care. And I think that's what was wonderful about the premiere, really, that we tapped into this emotion that is there in the city. We didn't create that emotion.
It's
that was
there.
there in
Yes.
the city. That's why people responded. And so that I feel is a real discovery and a real inspiration, and it gives you a push to keep going forward.
Great. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much, Umaji. Thank you so much, Mahnoorji, for agreeing to come on board and speaking about your film and the amazing work that you have done for the Rocks.
Our film.
Yeah. Oh yes, our film. And thank you for the opportunity. It was really nice working with you on this film.
It was wonderful having you.
Thank you.
And thank you for everything.
And thank you for giving us this chance to speak to you all.
Yes.